Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Jason Maxwell here from JMax Fitness. And in today's podcast, I would call him a physique expert. He's really good with building an aesthetic body. And that is really similar to the things that I like to preach at JMax Fitness. So I'm here with Scott Tousignant. So, Scott, I was wondering if you could tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Thanks a lot for having me here, Jason. I am, as you said, a physique coach. Been at this, been a personal trainer, physique coach for about 17 years now. Been super passionate about lifting. I mean, since I was 14 years old. Really pursued that passion through a human kinetics degree and dove right into the personal training field immediately afterwards. I've owned my own personal training studios and then discovered the beauty of online fitness coaching where I'm able to impact people around the world. And I basically do that through my website, metabolicmasterpiece.com. So I guess that's the quick, short Coles Notes version of, of myself. I've been a scrawny little kid growing up. Thought it was impossible for me to gain any kind of weight until I hit my mid-20s and opened my own business, started my own studio, started raising a family, and life just freaking got in the way. And for someone who thought I could never put on fat, I gained 50 pounds rapidly. And so, yeah, and really struggled, even with all my background expertise, really struggled to get that fat off for damn close to 10 years. So it wasn't until my mid-30s where I finally got my shit together and never looked back since then.
So I guess the timeline here is you had a lot of trouble from, 14 to mid 20s. And I guess you had trouble building muscle. And then from mid 20s to mid 30s, you gained that 50 pounds. And then mid 30s is when you shed it all off. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how did your training evolve from 14 to 25, and then from 25 to 35, and then from 35 to where you are today?
Oh, that's an excellent question. From 14 to 25, basically a lot of what I was doing was from the muscle mags. Loved reading Muscle Media 2000, Sean Phillips, Bill Phillips, following a lot of the programs in there, a lot of body part split routines. And my body responded all right. I mean, I was a scrawny guy. So, I mean, I started at 100 pounds if I was lucky at 14. And by the time I was 24, got married, I was only 123 pounds. So I gained 23 pounds, but was still a scrawny freaking guy.
How tall are you?
5'6.5".
Okay.
So, I mean, I looked all right. I was scrawny, but I looked okay. And then, so at around 25, weighing 123 pounds. So up to that point, doing the body part split routines. And then really from 25 to 30, I didn't do much working out at all. It was just whenever I could get a chance. As ironic and crazy as it sounds, when I opened my health club, I no longer had time to work out myself. It was here I was in a facility surrounded by weights, but putting in 16-hour days and not being able to train myself, which really sucked, put me into a depression. And then from 30 to 35, I really got kind of wrapped up in the short burst training. At that time, there's a lot of everything revolved around interval training, just quick short burst workouts. And I thought, it's for convenience purpose, it's suiting my lifestyle at the time. I ended up closing down my personal training studio, just training people in person in their own homes. So I was doing a lot of my own training in my own house. So quick 10-minute workouts, and really it didn't do much for me. It got me moving a little bit, but I wasn't passionate about it, wasn't fired up about it. And then at 35, met up again with my buddy Tom Venuto, who really reignited my passion for bodybuilding training. So again, I got back to like kind of the body part split routines that I was doing back in the day. And then from that point, I started learning more about optimal ways to train my program, doing different training frequencies, incorporating a mix of some of the old school techniques and new school techniques. And from that point, like I said, I never looked back. It was just reigniting that passion with bodybuilding, and just doing the traditional kind of bodybuilding nutrition plan. Really worked well for me.
Nice. So you mentioned some old school techniques. What kind of things were those? Could you expand upon that?
Some of my favorites, especially initially, Vince Gironda's 8 sets of 8.
Classic.
Definitely. I incorporated that quite a bit, especially because I was still pretty busy at the time. So it was time efficient for me. It gave me a great pump. Just a lot of different various rest pause type training techniques, just the original like pyramid type stuff, drop sets, strip sets, as Arnold would always kind of refer to them as. Just a whole blend of some of those old school techniques. Definitely 8 sets of 8 is one of my favorite. I still use it. I still work it in there probably every 3rd month. I like to work in 8 sets of 8 there for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely a fun one. 8 sets of 8, it was like cool before German volume training was even ever mentioned.
Yeah.
So it just shows how old school it is.
Definitely. I like to keep the rest periods really short with that, like 15 seconds rest. I really, man, it's the pump is ridiculous. I have to check your ego at the door and really drop the weight, probably about 60% of what you'd normally use for 8 repetitions. But first 4 sets, I like it because first 4 sets, it kind of gets you, it's not really a warm up, but it really helps you master that movement pattern. And then the last 4 sets, the burn is kicking in, and last 2 sets, you're struggling to get that 8th rep out there. And it's just the burn, the pump, all that fun stuff that we love.
Yeah. Once you can get over having your ego beat, it's sick. It's a great workout. Definitely. So I guess because you mentioned Vince Gironda, and he was big on training aesthetically. And when I see your stuff is very aesthetic based. So what would the difference be in the training between just training to build muscle and then training for aesthetics?
Well, yeah, and that's what I really liked, resonated with his approach. He referred to bodybuilding as cosmetic bodybuilding. So training for looks, basically, which is what aesthetics is. So building muscle, I guess, intelligently, where you kind of look at your physique, you kind of look at weak points, lagging points, and you strategically gain muscle in a way that will develop your physique in a symmetrical way, a proportionate way. So if you're someone who really lacks, you want to really build a V-taper, one of the first things you can do is try to build up your shoulders a little bit more and kind of create that illusion. But so really trying to create that symmetrical physique, the X shape or V, so V-taper at the top and a nice sweep with the legs and everything. So you're going for a generic kind of look like that. But then the finer details, like I don't like to just think of like the arms as arm exercises. I really want to make sure I'm developing, get an even development of both heads of the biceps, the inner, the outer, the brachialis, and just starting to pay attention to just the smaller muscle groups and really using exercise variation to make sure that you're hitting all aspects of a muscle and evenly developing all the different muscles that kind of make the smaller muscles that make up a section of the body, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned leg sweep. So how would you develop leg sweep on someone?
Yeah, that's an interesting topic, because a lot of the exercises, especially for the quads, if you're doing a leg press, all 4 quadricep muscles are going to be activated mostly. The rectus femoris may not. Like that's an exercise that you basically need to do a leg extension for, an exercise that so many people will make fun of and mock. But if you want, not necessarily quad sweep, if you want to develop that nice little rectus femoris, that muscle going kind of right down the middle of your quadriceps there, you're going to want to make sure you're working some leg extensions. For the sweep, for me, I mean, a lot of the major movements are going to work it anyways, whether you're squatting, whether you're doing a leg press. But for me, I kind of like to use intentions more than anything. And I think that really comes down to experience and really learning to hone your mind muscle connection. I do find with the leg press, you can kind of steer that neural drive a little bit. So although you're always going to have all 4 heads of the quadricep working. If I kind of apply pressure in a slightly different way with my feet, whether it's pressure more towards the outside of my feet, I may be able to steer that neural drive a little bit more towards the outer aspect of the quadriceps, that quad sweep. So a lot of times it's going to be your genetic makeup, but I find when you really want to develop that sweep, there's a certain degree of mind muscle connection that really comes into play there.
Mm-hmm. So for the mind muscle connection, how important do you think that is for your entire body?
Oh, 100%, especially when your goal is aesthetics. I think it's crucial. I think it's a skill that does take time to evolve. And to me, I think that's the beauty of bodybuilding, cosmetic bodybuilding, training for aesthetics, is that it really forces you to be present in the moment, really forces you to block out all distractions and really be aware of everything that's going on throughout the exercise. For example, like your back, you can really use, if you're doing a pull down, you can use a lot of biceps in there if you're not really focusing on what's going on there. So making sure that you have a connection, that you're engaging the muscle first the back muscles first before you do a pull down. Even with the leg press, for example, like I see a lot of people just unload that weight off the rack and boom, the weight comes right down on them and they push it up. They don't give any kind of thought to it. And you can really feel that tension shifting if you're not aware of it, shifting the upper hip area, lower back area. Whereas I like to kind of unrack that weight and feel that load in the quads before, like I'll slightly bend my knees, steer that tension towards the quadriceps more so than like the upper hip or lower back area, and then let that weight come down in a controlled manner. So I think when it comes to mind muscle connection, control is a big portion, a big part of it, and just being present in the moment. There's lots of little things you can do, like squeezing inwards when you're doing a bench press, or squeezing outwards when you're doing a pull down. Little things like that will completely change the way you feel in exercise. And training for the feel, I think, it's a big part of what can really help you carve out those details of your physique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of guys come to me and they're like, I'm having trouble building my chest. What should I do? And the first thing I always say is, make sure that you can feel the movement in your chest when you're doing it. And if you can't feel the contraction in your chest, it means you need to work on actually, learning to actually contract those pecs. Mm-hmm. Because if you can't sit there and, contract your pecs, you're not going to be able to build them up because you're not putting that tension into the pecs. And it's so simple. And I think it's like probably one of the most important things in bodybuilding. And I think I'm predicting that a lot of people are going to start talking about it more because people are starting to realize that it's so important.
100%, man. It's where it's at. I think it creates a lot more fun in your training because you are more aware, because you are able to just do different things. Like I said, with the grips and squeezing inwards, squeezing outwards, little things. You get playful with the movements, and you're forced to ditch all the distractions from your day and really focus inward on yourself. I think it's a great stress relief, and it's just a great way to become more in tune with you and everything that's going on with your physique while you're training.
Yeah, it really is amazing. It's funny you say that because I actually like to train alone just so I can, kind of be with myself and like feel everything working. It's almost sort of like a meditation, eh?
Oh, 100%. Oh, I totally agree. So many people, they'll gravitate towards yoga or Pilates or something. They feel like, oh, that's their form of meditation because they're quiet. It's more inward. And you can definitely get the same kind of effect from bodybuilding, even when you're freaking grunting and grinding out some serious sets there. It is very meditative because you're very focused inward. You're very, very present in the moment and feeling everything that's going on. I think really that's what meditation is all about.
Mm-hmm. So when going back to aesthetics, when training for aesthetics, I've always found that you need to actually like look at yourself in the mirror and establish, what parts of your body are weak and lagging, and then you kind of know which ones need to be brought up to build those proportions. So What advice do you have to guys that are just looking in the mirror? They don't really know where to look, and they don't know if something is lagging or not.
Yeah, I would, in general, honestly, I'd say most people don't have to worry too much about lagging body parts. It's not until you get a lot more advanced in your training, and especially for smaller guys like myself. Initially, if you're like a lightweight bodybuilder, a lot of times you just have to focus on building your physique as a whole, and I think that's going to apply for most people across the board. I think I see so many people focusing on specialized training when really you got to put some time under the bar for quite a while before you start even thinking about specialized training and building up proportions. But I mean, you can see it when it becomes obvious. The people are the brunt of all jokes there with the guy who never trains legs. You see him with a big torso and the scrawny little legs coming sticking out of the shorts. Those are kind of the obvious glaring lagging areas that I think a lot of guys fall into that trap, or they used to be. I see a lot more guys now are very focused on leg training, maybe even too focused on leg training than we ever used to be before. But legs used to be the easiest day for us to skip when we initially started working out. But mainly looking at proportions, like shoulders to waist ratio, little things like that. But even then, I try not to. There are, like, I know my buddies at the Adonis Index, their whole golden ratio. They have a measurement comparing the shoulders to their waist. But I mean, we're all kind of born with certain genetic advantages. In that department, I have a huge genetic advantage. I have a longer clavicle bone, so I am naturally a wider guy, and I naturally have a narrow waist. So very easy for me to hit those proportions. And some guys who have shorter collarbones, in order to get the same kind of width and same kind of ratio that I have, shoulder to waist, they have to build just massive amounts of muscle on their shoulder. And it's just not, to me, it's going to be very challenging to do that. And even if you do, it's going to look so freaking awkward because you're going to have, it's just I would try not to worry about hitting certain numbers, certain targets in terms of shoulder width and waist, but just looking at yourself and trying to see a nice little ratio. You got the V taper, you got a decent set of shoulders on you. Those, again, I don't think a lot of people really have to worry about the lagging areas so much. And looking for a certain,
not until it gets more advanced.
Yeah, more advanced, and then it does become a little bit more glaringly obvious. And especially you'll probably find a lot of people commenting about, holy shit, your arms look amazing. And that's your strong point. And like, what isn't looking amazing? And for me, chest was a weaker point and still is an area that I want to build up, thicken up. And a lot of it comes down to that mind muscle connection that you discussed there, like training the chest. You don't feel it activating during your bench press. Something's got to change. You got to do something to engage those muscles a lot more. I was using a lot of shoulders. I was using a lot of triceps, and I was finding my shoulders and triceps were growing like crazy, but my chest was really falling behind. So to me, it's just a matter of, I look in the mirror, I look at everything. I'm really happy with my arms, really happy with my shoulders. I'm just looking at my chest. I'm going, shit, I need to build that up. So a lot of times, if you have something that does really need to be built up, it's usually glaringly obvious that it's kind of lagging behind compared to other body parts.
Mm-hmm. So besides the intentions in your chest, what else are you doing to build it up?
Frequency, hitting it a little more often throughout the week. So if you do want to build up a body part, sometimes it's a good idea to kind of cut back on the amount of volume that you're doing for the rest of your body and add a little more volume to the part that's building up. And I find hitting a lagging body part more frequently with more total volume is a great way to build it up. Not a lot of volume each workout, but more volume throughout the week. So stimulating a lot more often. Simple things like you get in if chest for me, I'll get in a solid chest workout twice a week, and then maybe 2 to 3 times a week, just do little things like push-ups or lightweight on a cable chest press, where I'm just really trying to work on that mind muscle connection, not trying to annihilate it, just trying to activate it, enhance that mind muscle connection. So I find different cable work where I can really engage, feel the tension, feel the stretch. So really kind of gravitate towards movements where I feel my pecs working a lot more. So those are just little tactics, more frequent and more mind muscle connection work. Simple little things like just grabbing a bar. And so on off days, I'll just grab a bar and do a bench press where I'm squeezing inwards. Might do something like a Sven press on the bench where I'm just grabbing two little lightweight plates, squeezing them together, lying back and pushing up, just trying to engage. Even simple little, went to a muscle activation technique specialist. I was working with him for over a year, and even just crossing my body, like getting a pole in front of me, crossing my body and just pushing, just creating that inward intention where I'm pushing up against the bar and really feeling my pec squeezing. So just little activation techniques to really enhance that mind muscle connection on the off days can go a long way in bringing up that lagging body part. You don't have to be training it super hard all the time in order for it to bring it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the high frequency too, because I guess it was last week you sent me your aesthetic muscle plan, AMP, and I was looking through it, and the programs use a lot of high frequency training. So what's the story about you developing, I guess, your love for high frequency training?
I say I have a love for all frequencies. Mm-hmm. And they all have their place in your.
Okay, so a slight bromance.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess high frequency is, high frequency used to be 3 times a week. Now it's like 5-6 times a week, which I consider more like super high frequency. So definitely, the research kind of leans towards 2 times a week being the most optimal to hit a muscle group. 3 times a week can kind of fall in there as well. But just because it's optimal doesn't mean it's the best and that you should neglect everything else out there. So with the aesthetic muscle plan, I have 4 different frequencies that I use in there. There's the first one, which I think we're hitting each muscle group 3 times a week. The second one hits each muscle group 5 times a week. The third one is twice a week. And the fourth one is once every 4 to 5 days that you're going to hit each muscle group. So that program is kind of geared towards really exposing people to the benefits of the different frequencies. And I was always someone who, most of my training, my physique has mainly been built up doing body part split routines, and you kind of get stuck in that rut. And then just experimenting with different frequencies, not only does it add a lot more variety to your training, it makes it a lot more fun, but you're challenging your body in different ways. So really with the higher frequency training, you're taking advantage of muscle protein synthesis. So you're spiking it more often throughout the week. As an advanced trainee, you got to take advantage of that. You need to spike that muscle protein synthesis a lot more often. But muscle protein synthesis is limited to the number of myonuclei within your muscles. So when you're doing body part split routines where you're really fucking killing that muscle group, annihilating it during the workout, you can create more myonuclei, which then increase your chances of muscle protein synthesis. So they all have their place. They all kind of feed off of each other. But it's been increasing the training frequency has been an eye-opening experience for me, because you do have to manage your training volume and your recovery. The first time going through a higher frequency plan, it's very easy at the end of the workout to go, shit, was that enough? Did I do enough work there? But at the end of the week, you look at it, I'm doing more work for each muscle group than I did when I was doing a body part split routine. So it's definitely enough at the end of the week. And depending on how you structure your program, you can actually feel pretty fresh all the time, unless you're really hitting it with some heavy, serious weight. Then you got to be careful with burnout and really kind of overworking your central nervous system. But really, I love that it's just a completely different experience, whether you're training each muscle 5 times a week, 3 times a week, twice a week, or once every 5 days or so. It's just a different experience overall. I think just adds a whole new dimension to your training.
Hmm. So how do you like to periodize with all those different frequencies?
Yeah. So with AMP, it really was the plan there was to expose people to various frequencies, and they feed off each other really, really well. For myself now, like after completing 16 weeks of AMP, I'll usually pick a training frequency. Like right now, I am following a 5-day split. It's upper lower. We're focused on kind of strength training and push pull legs. And the push pull legs is focused more on hypertrophy. And we may follow this plan for like 2 to 3 months. So I'll work a frequency for 8 to 12 weeks, and then I'll change it up. That's usually how I'll periodize it. And really, the high frequency where I'm training each muscle group 5 times a week, it's maybe only once or twice a year. It's just, for me, it's a different challenge for your body. The reason I only program it once or twice a year, just because I tend not to get quite as much enjoyment out of it as I do some of the other training frequencies. And I think enjoyment, it's a great novelty factor that can really, it allows you to kind of push yourself. Like if I want to really enjoy a program, I'm going to give it my all. If I'm doing a plan just because I want to change up the frequency, challenge my body in a different way, I may enjoy it, but if I'm not getting as much enjoyment, I may not be as likely to push myself as hard. So working some of my favorite training frequencies a little bit more often throughout the year, but usually I'll stick with one frequency for 8 to 12 months. And I'll change the types of exercises I use every 4 weeks, even though I'm following the same split. And I'll change the training protocol that I use every 4 weeks. So this month I may be using straight sets, 8 sets of 8, myo reps. Next month I might be doing straight sets, 100 rep sets, and ascending rep drop sets. So there's just so many different training techniques that even though you're following the same split, you can challenge your body in different ways. And I say most of the splits I do use tend to be around hitting each muscle group, I'd say twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, and occasionally once every 4 to 5 days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. So to kind of like turn around here, I was reading on your site, I think it was about a year ago, about you talking about the truth about fitness selfies. So you seem to be a guy who knows how to take selfies, and you had a pretty interesting method on doing so. So what's the best way to take a great selfie of yourself?
Yeah, it's wow, that's a great question, dude. Yeah, what I found is that every time I was taking a selfie, I'm like trying to flex and hit that perfect pose, and it'd be blurry because my hands moving. I'm shaking from controlling myself. Like shit. So a lot of times what I do is just set my camera up so it doesn't. I don't have to worry about my hand shaking, and I record myself a video of myself striking a few different poses, and then I get my video editing software, and you can save a frame. So I like inch it a millisecond at a time, and then find that perfect pose, and just where everything just kind of, there's no blur, everything just showing myself at my best. So really, if I'm using videos and then snipping out a frame from that video is the best way to kind of share your selfies on there if you have that time to be editing and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So do you have any other photo shoot tricks?
Oh man, it's all yeah. I think that's the one thing with selfies is that you're always kind of getting that perfect image of someone. And for photo shoot tricks and looking your best, definitely lighting is key. For myself, shaving is key. Even a little bit of oil can help. I don't do that most of the time. For myself, I use selfies as a means of gauging my progress. So yeah, I'm striking the same pose each and every time, and I'm trying to get under the same lighting, and I'm looking my absolute best. I'm creating the best scenario possible to look my best, but it's putting in an image, sure, my best image of myself out there to the public. But for me, I'm using it as, that's my measuring tool for, am I progressing? A lot of different tricks. Just striking the right poses is a real big, can have a really big impact. I find facing the camera head on, you usually don't look your best, so slightly turn to the side and keeping your legs facing to the side in front of you, then completely turn them to the side, and your waist can end up looking a lot thinner, trimmer at the time. Yeah, I think I have an article up on, I'm certain I have an article up on Photoshoot tips and tricks, but definitely shaving yourself. A little oil is helpful. Even going in a sauna, like keeping yourself all nice and warm up first, because you'll look a lot more vascular than if you're cold. If you're going to take a selfie and you're in the cold basement of like an aerobics room in a gym and it's cold, and you're not going to be as vascular as you can. I know for myself, before I take like professional photo shoots, I even take a hot bath or go in the jacuzzi tub, because that would bring out my veins like freaking crazy. Yeah, there's lots of little tips I'm forgetting right now, but definitely finding the right poses that kind of highlight your best features. Even myself, like pushing my hands down against my waist, little different things that can make my arms pop out more, shoulders, and even make the abs look a lot better. So tiny little tricks that can be helpful there.
Nice. So what we'll do is I'll link to that article in the show notes, because I know a lot of people are going to want to read that. So obviously, to be aesthetic, you need to build muscle. Is there an optimal time to bulk up?
Can you clarify that? Like an optimal
in terms of, your leanness and things like that.
Definitely. Okay. Yes. I think, well, in terms of aesthetics in general, I think you want to be lean most of the time, because if your abs are covered in a layer of fat, your muscles are covered in a layer of fat, you're not going to look very aesthetic. So number one, before you even decide to bulk, make sure that you're lean to begin with, and ideally really freaking lean. If you want like a percentage wise, I mean, even around 8%, 8 to 10% is a good place to start a bulk, and allow yourself to kind of get up to around 12%. You can push it to 15%, but I think between 12 and 15% body fat, we all carry our body fat a little bit differently. Some of us can not look very aesthetic at all between 12 and 15%. So I like kind of staying within that 8 to 12% body fat. So appearance wise, I'm always looking aesthetic, whether I'm cutting or building, always looking lean, just different variations of different levels or degrees of leanness there. But there's also the hormonal benefits that come along with starting a bulking phase when you're leaner. When you're leaner and you start to gain weight, you start to go through a muscle building phase, the greater proportion of weight that you're going to gain is going to come in the form of lean muscle mass. Whereas if you're starting your body fat, if you're starting your bulking phase and you're a bit heavier, fatter, even around 15% body fat, there's going to be a good portion of your gains that are going to get directed towards fat storage as well. So it's mainly a percentage game of how much the percentage of weight that you're gaining coming from either muscle mass or fat mass. So being lean is the optimal place to really start the bulking phase, just based on the hormonal response, as well as it gives you that cushion to play with. So you're always looking aesthetic, and you can end your bulking phase still looking pretty damn good and pretty damn lean. And then you cut down again and get really ripped, and just keep cycling through it, going through those different phases. So the bulking and cutting phases are not like the dirty bulking phases that used to have before, and these long drawn out cutting phases. I think always keeping things in check keeps your cutting phase much shorter as well. So it gives you more time overall in a muscle building phase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree with that, actually. So let's say a guy comes to you and he wants to bulk up, but he's like 15, 16%, and he knows he should probably get lean first. How would you go about designing like a shredding program for him?
Yeah, shredding. So pretty straightforward. Just setting up a caloric target for him to aim for. I'd say, like, training wise, my training is relatively the same, whether I'm cutting or building. just a lot of it's the thing that varies is that you're going to be stronger when you're going through a muscle building phase. You're going to have more food in you. You'll be able to push out. You'll be able to progress more with your weight training than you would during a cutting phase. But overall program design is relatively the same. I wouldn't do any kind of specialized training during a cutting phase. It'd be more just trying to work the body as a whole, working all muscle groups kind of evenly. Diet-wise, setting a caloric deficit, my preference is to start a little bit more aggressive, like with a 30% caloric deficit, just because people like to see that initial weight loss. It kind of motivates them, inspires them. They see the progress and they want to kind of keep feeding off of it, but also because you have a little bit more fat stores in you. So I like to kind of taper down the level of, or the percentage of a deficit as I'm getting closer to their goal, because that's when your chances of losing muscle mass start to increase. So your chances of losing muscle at the beginning of a cut are a little bit lower, so you can be a little bit more aggressive with your diet. And like I said, it does get you that initial motivation boost to keep going. So mainly I try to control their deficit with calories, with their nutrition, not a lot of cardio. Unless they absolutely love cardio, I'm not against cardio. I just think most of your focus is going to be weight training and nutrition. Cardio is kind of just a little accelerator. And if you're going to do anything, I prefer the low intensity stuff. Just like brisk walking. I get a lot of enjoyment from walking my dog every day. Just doing activities that you enjoy, whether it's hiking, summertime, I'm out paddleboarding, just getting moving, being active. I do find when you're in a deficit, if you try to push the cardio too hard, basically you're in the gym, you're doing your weight training, you're doing your cardio, and you don't want to do anything else afterwards. You like kind of run yourself into the ground and you just want to sit on your ass when you're at home. Whereas if you don't do much cardio, you have a little bit more energy and you end up burning more calories just doing the activities that you enjoy in life. So it's kind of my focus when it comes to a deficit is just when it comes to fat losses. Keep training relatively the same, create a caloric deficit through nutrition, and just be active doing things that you enjoy. And definitely low intensity stuff I find is best because it helps you. It's good active recovery. It's not going to interfere with your weight training as well. Where if you start throwing in HIIT, especially frequent HIIT, I find that can really interfere with your weight training. So I don't want that going on. Rather your main focus be on the weight training and nutrition.
Beautiful. Love that answer. So now that we're getting close to the ending of the interview, I could really talk about this stuff all day. I'm sure you could too, because it's a lot of fun. But I'm going to move on to the rapid fire questions, and they're the same questions that I ask every one of the people that I interview. So are you ready for those?
I guess so. Not ready, but willing.
Okay. So what kind of things are you doing in your life right now to bring you happiness?
Oh, man. Definitely outdoors, active. It's summertime right now. So at the start of my cutting phase, actually, this was in the springtime, I got on a stair climber and I looked outside. I was on the stair climber for about 30 seconds and I saw the sun out there and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? So this summer, because the stair climber wasn't making me happy, and I could do a million different things to create a caloric deficit, but I want to live life to the fullest right now. So I've been hiking a hell of a lot. We've been going on a lot of different family trips, so doing a lot of hiking with the family. We bring our dog with us. It's a blast. Shooting hoops with my kids. I'm lucky my kids are 13 and 15 right now, and they're out in the driveway shooting hoops all the time, and they love playing with their mom and dad still. So I take full advantage of that. Been doing paddleboarding a lot this summer. So stand up. Yeah, stand up. Stand up on a paddleboard, and we got a nice little canal and a lake. So I'm lucky enough to be right on the water here. So I've been out there like every freaking day. I love it. The canal is gorgeous. It's really like weight training is my serenity as well. It's like as we said, it can be very meditative, but I'm a nature freak. I love being out in nature. So whether it's the morning or the evening, going along the canal where there's reeds up all surrounding me, and just hearing the birds, hearing hearing all the sounds. I really take advantage. That's why I love walking my dog as well. Just getting out there and I'm being very present in the moment, listening to the sounds around me, smelling everything around me. Just to me, it's the ultimate stress relief. And I think managing your stress is huge, whether you want to burn fat or build muscle. So making me happy, family, 100%. Being outdoors in nature with family, my ultimate for sure.
That's awesome. What would your profession be if you weren't doing fitness?
What would I want it to be, or what would it be? Teaching probably is what I was leaning towards.
That's cool. If you were to buy your 20-year-old self 2 books, one fiction and one nonfiction, which ones would you buy yourself or give yourself?
Okay. Nonfiction, probably The One Thing. The One Thing has helped me a lot because I can be very overwhelmed with so many things going on. And I think that book really helped get me centered and focusing on one task at a time. Nonfiction, man, I am not much of a nonfiction reader. Probably Lord of the Rings. That was, or The Hobbit is the first book that really kind of made things fun and exciting for me. Yeah.
Cool.
Those are what's come to the top of my mind.
Nice. And last one, where can people learn more about you?
Metabolicmasterpiece.com. Metabolicmasterpiece.com, you'll find where you can connect with me on all the social media sites, learn more about aesthetic muscle plan, coaching, all that good fun stuff, and articles that I'm writing. I definitely crank out a ton of video content, probably my preferred method of teaching and producing content, just because I love it. It's easy, it's quick, and as we're talking about there with the how to make yourself the photo shoot ideas, looking your best. It's easy to describe on video, a video demonstration, than it is to write a full article on it or do an audio on it. So video is definitely what I find most enjoyable.
Cool. Very cool. So I'll have all those things linked in the show notes, as well as the aesthetic muscle plan too, for people who want to check that out. So Scott, thanks so much for coming on, man. This has been it's actually been a pleasure. I've had a lot of fun talking with you about this. You know, as I said, I could talk about this all day or listen to someone talk about this all day. So it was very cool that you came on. So thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot. And guys, make sure you check out the show notes and you can learn more about Scott, and I'll have everything linked that Scott spoke about today, including those articles he talked about, the books he recommends, and his aesthetic muscle plan. I'll see you guys later.